My husband's college friend came to dinner. By morning, he'd stolen everything. Garlic tomato sauce simmered on the stove. Sunflowers gleamed against the oak table. The scent of basil felt like home, warm and safe. Yet my hand trembled as I struck the match and lit the single white taper. My name is Sophie, 31, and this bungalow in Portland was supposed to be my sanctuary. Ryan and I had built it together, painted walls, polished floors, and those blue and white heirloom plates, Grandma's favorite, proudly on display. Tonight we'd invited his old college roommate for dinner. I set a steaming pan of lasagna at the table's center. Layers of cheese and sauce glowed under the candlelight. My pulse hammered as I spooned salad onto plates. Excitement or something darker? I couldn't tell. Ryan burst through the kitchen door, excitement in his eyes and nostalgia in his grin. Jake's on his way, my roommate from college. I can't wait. He clasped my shoulder with a warmth that should have settled my nerves. Instead, I felt the stir of unease. Me too, I said, voice light. But inside, I thought of Ryan murmuring over appetizers. Jake's been a lifesaver back then. Remember that weekend I almost flunked out? I still owe him a favor. The memory tasted bitter. What price had he promised? I shook off the doubt. We had edible wedding flowers in a vase beside the salad bowl. That should have been enough. Yet when I caught my reflection in the window, cheeks flushed, eyes wide, I remembered the sting of my first heartbreak. I'd ignored a whisper of danger once. Not again. Sunset melted into twilight. Outside, the sky deepened to indigo. Inside, the lasagna bubbled gently. I smoothed my navy wrap dress and took a breath. The doorbell rang, sharp, insistent. My heart fluttered. I dashed to the door and opened it to Jake. He stood tall, leather jacket over a crisp shirt, a box of pastries in one hand and a bottle of bourbon in the other. His grin was too wide, practiced. "Hey, Sophie!" he boomed, stepping inside. His gaze swept the room, our couch cushion, the mantel lined with wedding photos, the locked cabinet hiding my grandmother's silver tea set. His fingers brushed the carved sideboard. I flinched. "Glad you're here," I managed, stepping aside. I guided him past the pastries, flaky croissants and sweet rolls, toward the dining room. Fairy lights strung overhead glowed like starlight. But as he dropped the bourbon on the counter, the air felt colder. Ryan greeted him with a hug that lingered too long. Jake patted Ryan's back, palm firm. My breath caught. Why did his embrace feel like a negotiation? We moved to the table. I poured wine, ruby liquid shimmering in the candlelight. Jake accepted a glass, then set down the bottle with a deliberate nod. He unwrapped his gift, a set of brass corkscrews in a leather case. "Perfect," Ryan said, truly delighted. Yet I watched Jake's gaze drift to the wine rack behind him. He lifted a bottle as if weighing its value, then placed it back with a slow, satisfied tilt of his head. I cleared my throat. "Dinner's ready." He settled into his seat, eyes narrowing in the firelight. I sliced the lasagna and dished it out. Each bite should have tasted like comfort food. Instead, my appetite shrank as I realized my home was now under appraisal. Jake launched into a story about that infamous campus prank, how he'd swapped the dean's mic with a karaoke machine. Laughter bubbled around the table. Ryan laughed too, but every chuckle seemed edged with tension. Between bites, Jake quipped, "Posh neighborhood you've got here, must cost a fortune." His tone was casual, but the words struck cold. I forced a smile, voice tight. "We saved for it." Ryan shifted in his seat, lips pressed thin. I caught his eye. Guilt flickered there, an apology unspoken. I looked away, focusing on the lasagna's golden top. My fingers dug into the napkin's folds. I wanted to ask, why is he sizing up our home? What price does Ryan owe him? But I stayed silent, trusting Ryan's judgment. As the final glow of candlelight danced on the plates, I raised my glass in a silent toast to nostalgia, to friendship, to a perfect night. Yet beneath the clink of glass, I heard a whisper, something darker is coming. A sharp knock at the door cut through my thoughts. Another reminder that the real story had only just begun. The corkscrew clanged on the marble counter, and my stomach lurched. Jake's fingers lingered over our prized brass set as he uncorked the second bottle of wine. Fairy lights overhead shimmered, but the warmth didn't reach my heart. He swept in with the ease of a familiar ghost, arms still draped around Ryan's shoulders from their too long hug. A box of pastries balanced on the sideboard, untouched. "Sophie, you made this place look amazing," he said, voice smooth. Then he tipped his head toward the wine rack. "Hope you've got good locks." My fingers froze on the hem of my dress. His words cut sharper than any blade. I forced a smile. "We do." Ryan poured the wine into 3 crystal glasses. The amber liquid caught the fairy lights like liquid gold. I took my glass with careful hands. My pulse thundered. He's mapping our home, I thought. He's counting our vulnerabilities. Jake settled at the head of the table, porcelain pastries forgotten. He leaned forward, eyes glinting. "How did you two manage the down payment on this place? Must have been a hefty chunk." He ran a fingertip along the lip of his glass. I swallowed the dry lump in my throat. "Family helped," I replied, voice shaky. He nodded slowly. "Family help is great, until someone else claims a share." He flashed Ryan a grin. "Right, buddy? Remember that weekend at college? You owed me big." Ryan's face twitched. He set his glass down too hard. Yeah? That was ages ago." Jake's gaze sliced back to me. "Memories have a way of sticking around," he murmured. He stood and drifted closer, each step deliberate. "You two look happy. But happy homes have cracks." He tapped the sideboard, as if emphasizing his point. My grandmother's silver tea set gleamed behind glass. I swallowed again, heart racing. "We've been careful." He smiled, polished. "Predatory. Careful isn't always enough." I excused myself to refill the glasses. In the kitchen's narrow light, I caught Sienna's reflection in the stove's stainless steel. She'd come early to help, just in time to witness this tension. Her eyes met mine. A single raised eyebrow, "He's up to no good." I returned with 3 fresh pours. The closer I got, the more I noticed the small things. The way Jake's gaze flicked to the locked cabinet, the faint scuff on his jacket, like he'd tested the front step for stealth. He accepted the wine breezily and swirled it once more. "This is nice. Makes me miss our old place, until I remember why I left." He tapped the glass again. "People back then were too clingy." My breath hitched. "We're glad you're here." My words felt hollow even to me. He shrugged, settling back into his chair. "I'm just checking on old friends." He let the sentence hang. Then softer. "And maybe collecting a favor or two." The table felt suddenly small, an arena. I wrapped my hands around my glass, knuckles white. Soft jazz hummed from the stereo, but I barely heard it, my ears tuned to the crackle of tension, the sticky warmth in my palms. Ryan cleared his throat. "Jake, you should get comfortable. There's a couch in the living room." His voice wavered. Jake stood, fluid and unhurried. He draped his jacket over the chair back and strode past me into our front room, eyes flicking to every piece of furniture. I watched him claim my space. I rose after a moment's hesitation and followed. Candlelight from the dining room spilled into the living room, illuminating pastry crumbs on the sideboard. Jake traced them with a fingertip. "What's this?" he asked, voice casual. Ryan stepped between us. "Just croissant bits," he said quickly. Jake smiled at me. "You should sweep those up. Details matter." His gaze traveled to the framed copy of our mortgage statement, displayed innocently on a shelf. My stomach flipped. "Would you like a blanket?" I offered, though each word felt brittle. He looked at me as though I were both hostess and target. "No, thanks," he said, settling into the sofa. Then he tapped the armrest. "You two have a good setup here. Just remember who holds the keys." My blood ran cold. He wasn't joking. I turned to Ryan, eyes wide. "What does he want?" Ryan cut in before I could speak. "Can we get you anything else?" Jake drained his wine. No, I think I've got the lay of the land. He smirked, as though revealing the punchline of a private joke. He leaned forward, voice dropping. If you ever need to hide something important, let me know. I'm an expert at finding secrets. Then he sat back, sipping bourbon through the fabricated glow of fairy lights. The living room felt like a trap closing in around us. I pressed my hand to my chest, willing my heart to slow. He had come as a friend, and a friend of my husband. But now I saw the truth. He was a predator, testing every weakness. I excused myself to the powder room, each footstep echoing with dread. In the mirror, I saw my own reflection, eyes wide, jaw set. My hands shook so hard the door handle rattled. Trust your instincts, I thought. I splashed cool water on my face, steeling myself for what would come next. Because tonight's welcome was only the beginning of a collection, and I was going to fight back. Soft jazz drifted from the stereo as Jake plucked another bourbon from the bar cart. Its amber glow flickered across the coffee table, illuminating etched patterns on my grandmother's silver coasters, now suddenly vulnerable. I perched at one end of the sectional, Ryan between us, every muscle in my body coiled. Jake leaned forward, leather jacket creaking, eyes locked on mine. So, Sophie, he began, voice syrupy. Tell me about that mortgage. You must have used a loan, right? Or did family pitch in? He tapped the edge of his glass, each knock resonating in my chest. My hands shook so hard the wine sloshed onto the tablecloth. I swallowed. We saved for years. Help from my parents, too. I forced a smile, desperate to steer clear of his sharp gaze. He nodded, as though filing away every detail. Family help solid, until someone else decides they deserve a piece. His words hung in the air like smoke. Then he turned to Ryan, voice low. And that line of credit you mentioned? Still open? Ryan shifted on the sofa, eyes darting. He glanced at me, guilt blazing. It's closed. Paid off. Jake's grin sharpened. Paid off. He circled his glass with a finger. Comforting. He stood and drifted toward the sideboard where our passports and emergency cash hid beneath a pile of platters. His fingertips hovered just above the wood. Emergencies happen. He mused, voice casual. Always good to have a backup stash. My pulse thundered. He'd found the hiding spot I'd thought was secret. I pressed my palms into the soft cushions, fighting the urge to leap up. Jake, enough. I said, voice tighter than I intended. He paused, eyes glittering. I'm just looking out for you. He replied too innocently. Trust me, I know where to find important things. I pressed my lips together, anger coiling in my gut. His veiled threats felt like ice against my skin. We appreciate your concern, Ryan said, voice strained. Really? Jake's gaze flicked back to me, cocking his head. Concern is great, until you realize who you should really be concerned about. He let the words linger, then tapped his watch. Well, enough talk. Let's enjoy the evening. He returned to the sofa, stretching out as if claiming his territory. I sank back, adrenaline pumping. The perfume of burnt sugar from the pastries on the sideboard mixed with the bourbon's sharp bite. Every cozy detail felt like a trap. I leaned toward Ryan, whispering, We can't let him. He hushed me, eyes wet. Not here. Jake laughed, loud and genuine. Everything's fine. You two have a gorgeous home. I just thought I'd give you some friendly pointers. He drained his glass, stood again, and sauntered to the hallway. He paused at the study door, finger brushing the knob. By the way, nice workspace. Lots of privacy. My chest constricted. The study held our most sensitive documents, saved passwords, insurance policies, that envelope of emergency funds. He'd scoped it out with every glance. He retreated down the hall, the door clicking softly behind him. I felt like prey as he vanished into the shadows. I closed my eyes, replaying his words. Sentimental heirlooms make excellent collateral. I know where to find important things. Friendly pointers. Each phrase was a thread in a snare. I stumbled to my feet. I'm going to get some air. My voice shook. Ryan rose with me. I'll come with you. We stepped onto the porch, leaving Jake's laughter behind the door. The night air was cool against my flushed cheeks. I drew in a breath, tasting relief and fear. Ryan's voice was urgent. Sophie, I'm so sorry. I underestimated him. I pressed my hand to my heart, catching my breath. He's not just a friend, he's here to collect. He nodded, shame in his eyes. I'll fix this. I turned away, staring at the dark street. My instincts had screamed the danger, now I had proof. In the silent night, I made a vow, I would expose him. Every hidden detail he uncovered, every threat he whispered, I'd turn it back on him. Because our sanctuary was worth fighting for. And as the porch light flickered, I knew the battle for our home, and my peace of mind, had only just begun. I slipped from our bed at 2:08 a.m., the soft click of the front door in the distance burning through my half-sleep. My pulse surged as I pulled on a robe and crept into the hallway. Moonlight slashed across the floor, illuminating the open doorway, our front door, wide as a welcome mat. Every instinct screamed danger. In the living room, the flicker of the dying candle revealed a tableau of betrayal. My grandmother's silver tea set, decades of family memory, lay strewn across the rug like discarded trophies. Teaspoon handles jutted from shattered saucers, creamers rested on their sides, rims nicked. My breath caught. I lunged for the sideboard, where I'd hidden emergency cash behind the whiskey bottles. The decorative box, tucked neatly beneath the wine decanter, sat open and empty. Not a single bill remained. Panic clawed up my throat. Keeping things safe, I muttered, recalling Jake's taunt. I spun toward the study, heart pounding as I passed the upturned cushions. My mother's china cabinet, once locked, stood open, only its empty shelves bore witness to the heist. A soft shuffle in the kitchen made me whirl. Jake emerged from the shadows, pocket bulging with silver. In one hand, he held my grandmother's sugar bowl, the final piece of his midnight collection. His grin was calm, triumphant. Surprised? He asked, voice low. I swallowed back terror. Why are you doing this? He tucked the sugar bowl beneath his jacket and stepped closer, eyes glittering. Favors, he said, voice steady, are meant to be repaid. I backed into the coffee table, rim of the bourbon glass cutting into my thigh. Each pain felt insignificant against the magnitude of his betrayal. Everything's gone, I whispered, tears stinging. Everything you kept hidden, Jake corrected, brushing past me. The front door clicked shut behind him, muffling his final words. Thanks for the hospitality, Sophie. Darkness pressed in. I sank to the floor, cradling broken silver in my arms. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. I pulled my phone from my robe and dialed 911 with shaking fingers. 911, what's your emergency? My home, my husband's friend, he's stolen everything. Please hurry. The operator's voice guided me through locking the study door and waiting for officers. I crawled into the study and slammed the bolt, the lock's echo reverberating through the house. I pressed my back to the cool door, phone trembling in my hand. Footsteps thundered as Ryan burst in, pajamas rumpled, horror on his face. Sophie! What? I barely met his eyes. He took it all. I held up the empty box, the broken tea pieces. My grandmother said, our cash. Our security. Ryan sank beside me, voice hollow. I'm so sorry. The front door crashed open as police flooded the foyer. Officers moved with calm precision, photographing shattered heirlooms, bagging silver fragments, dusting for prints. I recounted every probing question Jake had asked, about our mortgage, our safe, our valuables. Each detail was a dagger turned in my chest. One detective, a woman with kind, professional eyes, placed a hand on my shoulder. You did right calling us. Outside, red and blue strobed across the lawn. I stood, hands shaking, as they collected evidence. Broken love, broken trust, broken silver. In that midnight wreckage, I realized two truths. My instincts had been right, and only by facing this betrayal could I reclaim my life. When the detective handed me a case number, I looked up at Ryan. His shoulders heaved. "I'll fix this," he vowed. I nodded, tears falling. "We fix it together, no more secrets." And as the sirens faded into the night, I made a promise to myself. I would never ignore that flicker of doubt again. Dawn's pale light revealed our home in ruin. The living room was strewn with shards of silver and overturned cushions. Drawers hung open like wounded jaws. My grandmother's tea set, centuries of memory, lay in fragments on the rug. I stood in the chaos, hands trembling. Ryan emerged from the kitchen, face drawn. He held 2 steaming mugs of coffee, but neither of us could taste the warmth. He set one before me. I wrapped my cold fingers around it, the ceramic a fragile comfort. "I'm so sorry, Sophie," he whispered. His voice cracked. "I never meant for any of this." My chest tightened. "You invited him here," I said, voice low. "You never told me about the debt." Each word felt like a blow. He sighed, shoulders collapsing. "I was ashamed. I thought I could handle it, pay him back quietly. I never imagined he'd do this." I stared at the shattered teaspoons at my feet. "He targeted everything I love, our home, my family's heirlooms, my sense of safety." Tears blurred my vision. "And you trusted him more than me." Ryan knelt beside me, picking up a bent sugar bowl. "I know. I messed up." He met my eyes. "I want to make this right." I closed my eyes, grief and anger warring inside. "I need more than words." He nodded. "Actions, not apologies." An officer's voice echoed from the foyer. "Detective Lopez to the kitchen, please." Ryan stood and followed the detective, leaving me alone amid the wreckage. I sank onto the sofa, brushing a shard of silver from my palm. My phone buzzed, a text from Sienna. "I'm here for you. Call whenever." I typed back. "Soon." Her support was a lifeline. The detective returned with a folder. "Mr. and Mrs. Clark, we have a possible lead on your suspect." She outlined the plan to check security cameras and trace pawned items. Each step toward justice felt both hopeful and hollow. They could recover the silver and cash, but not the trust. We left the house to give officers space. In the patrol car, Ryan confessed every detail. How Jake had fronted him money 6 months ago, how he'd hidden the texts, how he'd feared losing me if I knew. I listened, heart ragged. His honesty stung. I needed the truth, but the wound it opened was raw. "I'm sorry I didn't protect you," he said, voice thick. "I'll stay with a friend until you feel safe." I inhaled, steeling myself. "I need space," I said. "I need to sort this out alone." He nodded, tears in his eyes. "I understand." That afternoon I packed a bag. Essentials, clothes, my laptop, the bent brooch I'd pried from the shattered set. It was both a token of loss and a symbol of survival. I zipped it shut and placed it by the door. Sienna picked me up. In her car, I watched our home recede through the rearview mirror. Each glimpse of shattered glass and upturned furniture tightened my chest. I turned away, focusing on Sienna's calm presence. At her apartment, I curled on the couch, suitcase beside me. She brought tea and sat quietly. I let the tears come, unleashing the grief I'd held in check all morning. Sobs racked my body. She wrapped me in a blanket, murmuring, "You did the right thing." That evening, I drafted emails. One to our insurance agent itemizing losses, another to a lawyer to discuss a civil suit against Jake for restitution. Each keystroke was an act of reclamation, a refusal to remain powerless. The next morning, I returned home alone with a locksmith. He rekeyed every lock, replaced the doorknob, and installed a keypad camera. As each bolt clicked into place, I felt a spark of agency. This was my house again, secured by my own hand. Ryan called to say he'd stay with his sister. I let it ring once, then answered. "Thank you," I said quietly. "I need you to respect my space." He sighed. "Of course. I love you. I love you too," I replied. "But I need time." I hung up and walked through the now locked door, pressing the keypad. Each number felt like a prayer. 248 lock. In the empty house, I stood in the living room, picking up one silver teaspoon, bent but intact. I closed my eyes and whispered, I will never ignore my instincts again. And with that vow, I stepped into the next chapter, ready to rebuild, not just our home, but my trust in myself. Weeks passed, and our bungalow felt both foreign and familiar. The new locks clicked confidently. The keypad camera glowed its steady blue. Yet the deepest change was inside me. I was no longer the fearful Sophie who had watched her sanctuary crumble at midnight. I was the woman reclaiming her life. That morning, sunlight spilled through curtains fresh from the cleaners. I sat at the kitchen island, a stack of papers before me, insurance claim forms, the civil suit draft, and notes for my first therapy session. Across from me, Ryan placed 2 mugs of ginger tea on the counter. He stood awkwardly, hands folded. I filed my statement. He said quietly, I included everything, how I hid Jake's loan from you, how I kept you in the dark. His eyes were earnest. I'm ready to own my mistakes. I met his gaze. His actions matched his words. Relief warmed my chest. Thank you, I replied, voice soft but steady. This is the change I needed to see. Later, I joined my lawyer in a cramped office. She reviewed the suit's details: burglary, conversion of property, emotional distress. We have a strong case, she said. He targeted you, Sophie, based on information your husband gave him. The court will see that. Each legal term felt like a shield rebuilding my broken walls. That afternoon, I returned home and unpacked a canvas from its tube, a half-finished painting titled Resilience. Bold streaks of sunrise orange and cool sky blue formed a fractured circle, mended by lines of gold. I set it on an easel in the living room, transforming the space that once felt violated into a studio of renewal. As evening fell, I stood before it, brush in hand, adding golden threads to the cracks. Each stroke whispered, You are stronger than fear. The next day was court. Dressed in navy and carrying a folder of documents, I sat in a packed courtroom. Neighbors and friends filled the gallery, my support network, silent witnesses to my journey. The judge's gavel rapped, and the prosecution laid out the case: Jake's deceit, the calculated questions, the midnight raid. When it was my turn, I rose and faced the bench. Your Honor, I began, voice steady. I stand here not merely to recover stolen property, but to assert that no betrayal, none, can silence a woman's voice. I described the probing, the theft, and the shattered trust. At the end, I looked at Jake, now a cornered figure in orange, and felt no fear, only resolve. The judge's verdict echoed: restitution of stolen goods, damages for emotional harm, and a sentence for burglary and fraud. In that moment, tears blurred my vision, not of sorrow, but of liberation. Justice was partial, but powerful. Back home, Ryan and I hosted a small gathering under new string lights on the porch. No strangers, only those who had stood by me. Sienna arrived with homemade bread. My mother carried a white cake. We raised glasses of sparkling cider beneath the gentle glow. To trusting our instincts, I toasted. My voice cracked, but support rang through the circle. Ryan lifted his glass to me. To you, he said warmly. To your strength. Later, as guests drifted away, I stood barefoot on the porch with Ryan. The night air was crisp, and the painted canvas Resilience peeked through the sliding door behind us. Ryan slipped a silver spoon into my hand, one of the repaired pieces from the tea set, now mended and gleaming. I wanted you to have this, he said softly. Fixed like us. I traced the spoon's golden seams. Actions, not words, I whispered. He nodded, wrapping me in his arms. For the first time since that perfect Sunday, I felt safe and heard. That night, I journaled by the bed lamp. I reclaimed my home. I reclaimed my voice. I will never ignore my instincts again. I closed the journal and looked out the window at our peaceful street. In the reflection, I saw Sophie reborn, wary but hopeful, wounded but whole. The path ahead remained uncertain, but I would walk it guided by that inner voice I once nearly silenced. And as sleep claimed me, I whispered into the darkness, "This is my story, written in truth, sealed with strength."